Well, Father, I have to hand it to you. The spotlight was a great addition to this year's church festival. It's so dark out tonight. People will be able to see the spotlight for miles.
Thanks. It was one of my better ideas.
Let's just make sure we keep the spotlight out of the eyes of the trapeze performers. We don't want a replay of last year's snake charmer incident.
Hey, how was I supposed to know that snakes react that way to polka music?
Enough! We have work to do. Okay, Don, point that spotlight right at that cloud over there.
You mean the peanut-shaped one? Wait, what is that?
Father Miller? Why is there a giant peanut flying over our church festival?
I don't know.
Maybe they like funnel cakes? I know. Be quiet and just keep pointing the light. I'm on it.
Fascinating.
This week on the Parsonage Files, the Norwood Church UFO Incident.
Welcome to the Parsonage Files. Join Pastor Rick and his brother Rob each week as they explore the odd, funny, and mysterious stories from the world of faith and church history. Let's get started. Here is Pastor Rick.
Welcome to the Parsonage Files. My name is Rick Burke, and I have been a United Methodist pastor for well over 20 years. And in that time, I've collected a bunch of stories to use in sermons. And some of these stories are just really awesome, but they just don't fit into a Sunday morning. So it's those stories that we're going to share here on the Parsonage Files. Joining me is my brother, Rob. Hello, Rob. How are you?
I am doing great. It's the last day I have to mow the grass.
I know. I am pretty excited. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to rake my leaves before I mow or see if I can just mow them and maybe...
Dude, that's not even a question. You just mow and go for it.
So last year, the little kids next door came over and wanted to rake my leaves. I said, sure. So they raked them into a pile and then spent the rest of the day jumping in them.
That's adorable.
And then they just got spread all back out. So I basically just ended up paying them to come play in my yard.
But they had a good time, right?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I had a kid show up. He was an older kid, maybe like 8th grade, maybe. And he goes, hey, do you want your leaves raked? And I said, how much? He's like, $20. I said, oh, okay. He goes, do you have a rake?
Oh, dude, you can't do that.
I go, what?
Gotta bring a rake.
You don't have a rake? No. I'm like, I'm not paying you to use my rake to rake up my...
I was about to say, nice to be an entrepreneur, a word I can't say, in the 8th grade, but yeah, he's got some issues with his business plan there.
Yeah. So
what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to be talking about church festivals. And I had a little story about a church festival just outside of Cincinnati back in the 1950s, late 40s, early 50s. And I didn't have too much information on it. So I gave what I had to you, Rob. And I said, Rob, see what you can find. Because the headline was UFO Visits Church Festival. And I was like, Rob, is this really a story? Or was this just some sort of funny headline? And I don't even remember where I got the story from. And boy, Rob, did you do some research and find that indeed this is a real story.
Putting that library science degree to work finally.
You're putting that library science degree to work.
So before we begin, have you ever had a church festival?
Yeah. So the first church I served, it was a 2-point charge. And the church that sat in the town. Now, you have to remember this was what I call the frozen tundra of Ohio, up in Northwest Ohio, little farming town, not too far from Indiana. And this church had 25 people in it. And I used to joke that most people didn't know we were still a church because it was a big church. I mean, the sanctuary probably sat about 200, and we maybe put 20 on a good Sunday in there. And those who did know we were a church didn't like us.
Other than that, it was going great.
Other than that, it was great. Fantastic. So they decided they wanted to have a festival. There was some.
And this
sort
wasn't a festival they've had before.
No. The town, the little town we were in had a festival for sunflower or something, and they wanted to have some sort of church festival related to it.
Okay.
And they made all of these just really kind of corny games out of cardboard. I'm like, really, guys? And
Like the kids down the street would do.
and we borrowed a tent from Youth for Christ that we would end up stealing. I'll get to that in a second. But so I'm not making this up. So on the side of the church, it kind of was like this Gothic headstone, and on the side it had like a, I don't know what you'd call it. It was like a round parapet kind of deal that came out.
Yeah.
And this one family, God love them, that they were so sweet, but they just had a lot of issues.
Right.
Right, the mom had a lot of just mental health type issues and
Okay.
stuff. And she goes, "Can we make a sign to hang up?" And I said, "Sure." She goes, "This is what I'll do. I'll just take an old sheet and we'll just paint on there that we're having this festival and when it is." I said, "Okay." Well, it never occurred to me that they would paint on it after it was hung up.
Oh, heavens. Oh,
They
no.
hung it up on the side of the building, took can of spray paint,
On the stone building?
and it went right through the sheet, right onto the building. We had to have the building sandblasted to get the paint off.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that was
Oops.
fun. That was fun. And so we had this festival.
That's a trustee's worst nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah. And we ended up after the
But did it work? Did people come?
well, a few, because they would walk by the church, and there was stuff there, so that they would come in and throw little ping pong balls into cups of water or something. I don't know. It's a long time ago. But what I do remember is we stole a tent from Youth for Christ. We'd borrowed this tent, and apparently we had given this tent to Youth for Christ a few years earlier because we said we didn't need it. Well, some people at our church said we shouldn't have really given it to them.
And this was a chance to get it back?
Correct. And so I go, "Guys, we gave this to them like 4 or 5 years ago. We can't just take it back."
The heck we can't.
"Well, it's our tent." I go, "No, it's not your tent. You gave it to these people 4 or 5 years ago. This wasn't like we did it last week. We did it before. They've used it. They expect it." And the guy for Youth for Christ is coming back to pick it up Monday morning. And they go, "Here, what we'll do is we'll just hide it in your office, so when he comes to pick it up, he won't be able to find
You're
it."
making this up.
I swear to you.
What did you say? So you're like young
I
pastor.
said-
This is your first church,
Yeah,
right?
I said, "I'm not dealing with this," and I turned around and went home. I'm like, "I'm not dealing. You all do what it is you want to do." But
What do you think the Lord's leading you to do?
so Monday morning, the guy for Youth for Christ comes to my office, and I am like mortified, right? I am just absolutely mortified. And he's just laughing. He's like, "Rick, it's okay." I go, "I'm so sorry." He goes, "No, I know. There's no reason for you to be sorry." And he goes, "I feel bad for you." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." This is why I always said nobody knew we were a church, and those who didn't like us.
See, this is stuff they don't prepare you for in ministry at seminary.
No. So whenever I hear church festival, that's what I think.
This is
I
the
just
image that
have
goes in
this
your mind?
Bad connotation, but that's not what was happening in Norwood, Ohio.
Yeah, so this was a little better.
Okay, so we are going to Norwood, Ohio. Where is Norwood, Ohio, Rob?
It's just a little bit north of Cincinnati. I'm looking here on MapQuest.
Okay.
And
Wait, back up. MapQuest? You still have MapQuest. So do you print them out, Rob, and put them in your car?
Yeah, and then I stop over and get a triptych from AAA and
Triptych.
head on. Yeah, so it's great. It's great. So Norwood's a northern suburb of Cincinnati.
Okay.
This takes place in 1949. And so, Pastor Rick, let me lay this out for you. There is a priest by the name of Father Gregory Miller. He's the pastor at Norwood's Church of Saints Peter and Paul.
But not Mary.
And not Mary. And he has a plan. They're having a festival.
So he's the man with the plan.
He is a man with a plan. They're having a carnival, a festival.
Okay.
And he needs to attract people to this. And so he's like, "Self, how do I get people to come?"
How do you get people to come to a church?
And this could be something that you could take and run with, Pastor Rick. So you listen to his plan and you see, because I think this is genius.
I have heard all kinds of plans for church events and how to get people to show up. So yeah,
So-
let's see what his plan is and see how it differs from from my typical plan.
So it's 1949, and there's a lot of war surplus coming out of the Second World War.
There is indeed, I'm sure.
And so one of the things that you can acquire relatively easily is a military-grade searchlight.
Who doesn't want a searchlight?
Specifically an 8 million candle power searchlight that shoots 25,000 feet in the air and was used for detecting bombers and for air raids. So
it's one of those big ones that they're like sit on a trailer.
The big ones that sit on the back of a trailer that you haul in. So you can get one of these. And so he was gonna. So his idea was to buy one, and then you could fire that bad boy up, and you're gonna attract people from all over Greater Cincinnati.
You know, I am just thinking if we got one of those for Groveport United Methodist Church, worship time at 10:30 a.m. Sundays, online or in person, we'd love to see you there. If we got one of those for Groveport, holy mackerel.
There's someone with clipboard coming over to say hi to you, but
people would notice.
Yeah,
people would notice.
That was his plan, but there's a hang up. Such a piece of equipment is expensive, but Father Miller, he has this all worked out. So what they're going to do is acquire this spotlight, and then once they get it and use it for their festivals, then they would lend it out to other churches around.
Lend it out or rent it out?
Rent it out and help recoup the cost on that.
In order to run such a thing, do you have to have like specialized training, or do you have to have like a license or something? I mean, that's a lot of license,
but you do need training, and this already been taken care of is where one Sergeant Donald R. Berger, who was an instructor at the University of Cincinnati's ROTC program. I've heard both that he was either a parishioner or a paid employee. It would make more sense that he was a parishioner because he was going to go with his spotlight and run it at these different churches. So it seems like something a parishioner would do.
So it's a guy with his spotlight.
You got a priest, you got a spotlight, and you got a guy to run it. This is their plan. They get the spotlight, they park it out there. So it's the evening of August 19th, 1949. They fire up this spotlight, and everything is going great. People were coming. They're watching the trapeze acts. I can't really wrap my mind around trapeze acts at a church festival, but whatever. It was a different time. I mean, where do you get a trapeze? Just on a side note, Pastor Rick, have you ever had?
I've never gotten a trapeze. I've gotten a camel before,
but it didn't walk on a trapeze.
No, he had a trailer and he had kind of a diva attitude.
Did he have? As camels do.
I guess camels do. Yeah, you know, he was kind of a diva, but yeah, $850 an hour for a camel in Ohio.
Did I go over the entertainment already of what was at this festival?
You did, but it's is it the Milo brothers, Milo family?
It's the Pastor Rick. It's
the three Milos.
The sensational keys in the three Milos. So the three sensational keys in the three Milos, they're doing their thing. I'm guessing it kind of doo-doo. You got spotlight. You got
a trapeze.
You got the smell of funnel cakes. Everything's going great, and then it happens. Sergeant Berger, he's got the spotlight. He's panning around, and he catches something in the light. Not expecting that, he kind of brings the light back, and there's a big silvery object floating there. Looks sort of like a balloon, maybe.
So there's just this
balloon, though,
big silvery object floating in the sky,
reflecting the light back. I'm quite high, and they
didn't notice it there before the spotlight hit it.
Correct, and so it kind of is floating there, and kind of when they move the light, it stays with the light. So it kind of is following the light around, like it's getting energy from the light. This continued on for a couple hours, and as the festival goers eating their funnel cakes, eating their ice cream, all start gathering around the light. This becomes a spectacle that you're looking at. What is this thing? And start pondering what it is they're seeing. Night wears on, and eventually it kind of just floats away. No sound, nothing, but the object just floats away. They turn off the lights. Everyone goes home.
So they catch this weird object that was apparently just floating over the festival. Now, it doesn't sound like it was self-illuminated.
No, it was reflective, but not self-illuminating.
Okay. And it just floated away, and that was that.
And that was it. It was one of those things, who knows what that was? Weird.
Yeah.
All right. So, again, we circle back to the fact that they're renting this light out to other churches around Greater Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So they roll over to the next festival that's on the docket for the St. Gertrude Festival in Madeira. The St. Gertrude Church in Madeira was having a festival themselves.
For those who are not from Ohio, Madeira is another suburb of
Oh,
Cincinnati.
yes.
Yep.
So they're basically making a tour of the suburban Cincinnati area, all the Catholic churches with their big lights.
Yeah.
So they pull up there on the 21st. They fire that bad boy up again, and sure enough, within a few minutes, they catch something in the lighting. Very similar, large circular object, kind of hanging there for a few hours, and then eventually disappears.
So very similar to what they saw before, just a large circular object that is apparently hovering over top of a church festival and is illuminated by the now mobile searchlight.
Right. That made the rounds in the newspapers. It's starting to get a little notoriety at the church. Maybe not the kind of notoriety you want, but a little notoriety. So then we now move to the next weekend, because as you can see this pattern, every weekend there's a festival. They move to September 17th at the next festival, and they fire the light up, and sure enough, there it is again. They get a better view of this.
Okay.
So it's floating there, and the police actually get called from neighbors that see it. So they come out and they take a look at it.
The neighbors call the police not because there's a giant light shining,
But because it's illuminating something weird.
something in the sky. Okay.
And so it's described as two silver balls, not unlike a giant peanut. So
A giant peanut.
a giant peanut was floating above, a giant shiny peanut was floating above the festival. And it seemed to be attracted to this light.
So like,
And so it's a light seemed to be attracting this
so
object.
if I can ask now, so
Yeah.
is it like a bigger ball and a smaller ball? Is that what it looks like?
I'm not necessarily sure that I know the answer to that. Two balls that look like a peanut is how it was described.
Now, is the peanut upright or is it laying on its side?
Upright. On top of each other.
Is it salted? Honey roasted?
Wow, Pastor Rick. I don't think you're taking this seriously.
No.
Next time there is a UFO at your church event, I think you
Do I want people making fun of
making
the
fun of your
UFO at my
of your
church
giant
event?
shiny peanut flying above your church? Yeah, no. And so what's it want? Why is Mr. Peanut there? Who knows? So after 3 times and getting a little bit of notoriety, they hatch a plan, as they say. This caper unfolded on October 23rd, 1949, and it's going to involve over 50 witnesses. It's going to include reporters, the managing editor of the Cincinnati Post, scientist from the Cincinnati Observatory, one Leonard Stringfield, who is a UFO researcher,
A very well-known
UFO researcher, and a lot of this story comes from some of his books that he would account the account of this UFO flap.
Leonard Stringfield wrote a bunch of books. Very prolific UFO.
And I
author.
believe he was one of the people that got the whole Hangar 18 thing going there at Right Pat, right?
I do believe.
Or at least perpetuated that story greatly.
Got it. You
And
got it.
so
Going.
that's who this is. So they have all these people. The local police department show up, and the kicker is the mayor of Norwood showed up. So what they decided to do was they're going to hatch a plan. Since this thing seems to be attracted to this light, they're going to have all of these people around. They're going to have movie cameras, and they're going to track it there, and they're going to figure out what the heck this is. They go to the parking lot of the church, fire up the light, and just wait. They're standing there waiting. They're waiting.
And there's nothing there.
For a while, no. And they're like, well, maybe it knows, maybe it doesn't. Then it happens. It happens. It shows up. And it puts on a show. And this is the kind of weird thing, is like it almost knows that they're there for
That there's a crowd.
That there's a crowd there. So this time it shows up. The police get about 50 pictures of it. There's a 16mm film of the sighting. Reporters are there, and so they're watching it, and it does something it hasn't done before. So it's floating.
The giant peanut.
The giant peanut is floating, and then all of a sudden a door opens up on it, or a hatch. Shiny lights in there, kind of shining out, and in this light comes out these tiny little triangles. Some describe them as looking like arrowheads, and they kind of follow the light out, start riding down the beam. And then as the beam that's coming out of the ship moves, they move with it, and they're descending towards the people.
So it's like a light beam coming out of the side of the ship that they're following?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so a door opens up in the ship, light beam shoots out, And then in this light beam, like a tractor beam from Star Trek, I guess, it's got these little arrowhead things that are coming out, projectiles.
Do they know how big all of this is? I know it's hard to tell when something's up in the air how big something is, but are these triangles like people size or car size or
No, like, hand size, just not huge, but not small. And so
but big enough to be seen from the ground, obviously.
big enough to be seen from the ground. So Father Miller has a brother, Reverend Cletus Miller. Cletus. And Cletus is there with his brother on this big day because, as you do, your brother got your back when you're investigating aliens. So
And he's also a priest?
he is. And so Cletus was interviewed by the local paper after all this. His quote is, "They look like Indian head arrows coming at us." The managing editor of the Cincinnati Post was there, and he was quoted in his paper as saying that he saw the objects come out. He saw first off, he saw a searchlight bounce off a solid object. He saw the door open. He saw a beam come out, and he saw these objects come out. He thought they looked more like paper airplanes than arrowheads, but the point would be the same: is an object,
pointed.
A pointing objects came out of a UFO floating above.
And where did they go?
They floated around in kind of in a circle. Once the light went off, kind of floated around the outside of the UFO and then kind of disappeared. The newspaper is there, the local TV station. So they have footage of this. None of the pictures, and you can look at up online, you can see the pictures of it.
Yeah.
It looks like a bright object, like the moon almost, but you don't see any of these little or
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the yeah.
And the people that were there said that that they could attest to the fact that this happened, but this didn't get picked up on film at all. So
the picture that I'm looking at, it for lack of a better term, it looks like a peanut. I don't know what to tell you. Looks like a peanut kind of on its side at maybe like a 20-degree angle, kind of on a slope. And that's weird.
So as we mentioned, the police department were there and they took pictures. There was a officer who was the department's photographer at the time,
Yeah.
Leo Davidson, and he took a number of pictures. This is where some of the more weirdness of this sighting also comes in. It's only later when they're looking at the developed pictures that they notice this, which you hear a lot in paranormal stuff. Like, only later did we notice this. Is that the spotlight was deflecting off of the peanut UFO at a 26-degree angle, as if being sucked into the hole that was opened up in the object.
Yeah. So if you look at the one picture that I'm looking at, the light, and it's hard to explain if you're listening to this and not looking at what I'm doing, but the light from the spotlight is coming up into the air, up through the haze of the clouds or what have you, at an angle, and then the UFO is like maybe a little bit over to the left of where the light is, and then the end of the light just bends down, like it bends and goes and hits the side of the UFO, which I don't know what would cause light to bend that way.
And UFO
That's weird.
Yeah, right. And so there was a relatively famous UFO investigator by the name of Dr. Richard Haynes. He'd seen a lot of documentaries. It was CUFO, maybe what's the one?
CUFOS,
and so he did,
which is the one started by J.
Allen
Hynek. Yeah.
And so they would do some research onto this sighting, and in their research pointed to the fact that it looked like that there was an anomaly there, suggesting an interaction with a solid or an energy-based structure. Beyond that, they could not comment.
Yeah, that is weird, because it looks like it just at the very end, the light just goes boop and bends to the left ever so slightly. That is really, really odd. What would cause light to do that?
But in general, besides it opening up and shooting out little baby ships, the UFO was the same one that had been, or at least one very similar to it that had been seen the last.
Just sort of floats there.
But also at the exact same time, or same evening rather,
yeah.
The police received a number of calls from all around Cincinnati of a perfectly round object floating above the town, that actually had an internal glow to it, which is different, right? The first one doesn't glow. This one does glow.
So like an actual glowing orb.
A glowing orb that radiated a blue-white light and appeared to be self-luminous, visible without a searchlight. A witness claimed it hovered motionless for several minutes over the town before drifting slowly toward the horizon, vanishing without a sound or a trace, heading towards Indiana. No aircraft were reported nearby, and its steady brilliance contrasted sharply with the stars. The anomaly suggested either a different class of phenomenon or a variation in appearance under certain conditions of the same phenomenon, according to the research by Dr. Richard Haynes. So was it two objects? The same object is seen at a different angle? Weird.
I mean, one would assume that they're connected, but there's no real proof.
No. So sightings did continue into the early 1950s. Every time they would bring the light out to different festivals, they'd fire that bad boy up, and more often than not, they would catch a UFO. But never again did it do the show that it put on for the group.
So did the spotlight kind of become famous?
Locally, it was famous, right? It was.
Yeah.
It was the spotlight that attracts aliens. And so that's why I'm like, is this a love story between the UFO and spotlight? But in all seriousness, is there something at the light that was attracting this craft?
This particular craft.
Was it the energy from the light that it was using?
Or was the craft just always there, and every time the spotlight showed up, it was catching it?
Bingo.
But then why is there a craft over top of church functions? That's weird.
Because the spotlight was only over church functions.
Oh, and nobody was shining a spotlight over top of...
Were they there all the time and no one just noticed because you weren't shining a spotlight?
If there's have to be a group of people gathered.
So that's an interesting question.
Weird.
There was a competing spotlight that was moving around the church festival circles.
All right, back up. So Father Miller wasn't the only person who had the idea of...
Oh no, Pastor.
So could this have been somehow from the competing spotlight?
Well, see, that was what Sergeant Berger, who was operating the spotlight, thought initially. In his training with the military, you cross two spotlights and you can get some weird shapes, i.e. think of the Battle of Los Angeles.
Right.
But upon further review and conversing with the other spotlight operator, it seemed doubtful, and the other spotlight wasn't being used during the other sightings. So that theory kind of didn't really pan out. So over the course of the next few months, from January into March of 1950, the spotlight would get wheeled out, fire up for festivals, and they would more often than not see something in the light. The final time that the object was seen was March 10th, and then Sergeant Berger, who was operating the light, logged no further encounters since then. That kind of.
So you said logged encounters. Did he write down everything he saw?
I forgot the best part about Sergeant Berger, who was running it. He took copious notes.
You know, I am looking at a picture of him right now, and he appears to be somebody who would take notes.
And so he wrote copious notes and had times and dates for all the sightings. So yes, he was taking notes, and that's how we get a lot of this information about at 8:50 it lit up. It was hovered for 48 minutes and then disappeared and came back because from his work.
So I am looking at a picture of him running this spotlight, and this spotlight is bigger than Sergeant Berger is.
Oh, it's an awesome light.
It is a huge light. Holy cow. And it sits on its own cart. I mean, it's substantial. All right, Rob. So is that all that happened?
No. Later they would find out that there was military interest in this sighting. And it wasn't just one of those ha-ha funny things. The U.S. government cared about this.
So did they send people to investigate?
They did. So moving back, to the fourth encounter where they had set up.
The mayor was there. The astronomers.
They had set up to capture evidence of
the one where these photos that I'm looking at are from.
Right.
Yeah.
In that crowd of 50 odd people were two Air Force officers from the Department of Military Science and Tactics that were assigned to Project Grudge.
From Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
Wright-Patterson Air Force.
So in case you aren't familiar with the layout of the western part of Ohio, Cincinnati area is probably about 45 minutes south
Yeah,
of
60 miles for 5 minutes.
of Dayton, which is the home of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So these two Air Force officers would have driven down. And did the folks know there were Air Force officers at the time? Were they invited, or did they just show up?
Just showed up, as every good story has, right?
Every good UFO story, the Air Force just knows. They just show up.
They just know. That's the U.S. government we all know.
Efficient?
Efficient, yeah. Any event, moving on.
On top of it.
Yeah, right. Proactive U.S. government.
Yeah.
That's the government we all know.
Yeah, proactive.
So the two Air Force officers would go down, and then they would file a report with Project Grudge. And basically in it, they said that their conclusion was it was an optical illusion caused by light refraction. Nothing really unusual about it. It happened with these older bulbs and lenses in these lights, and they closed the case.
Which would be why every time they fired up that light, they would see it.
Correct. And no one else did. And that it would follow the light beam because it was coming from the light beam.
Okay.
Now, this kind of rang hollow to everyone that was there because, as we mentioned before, they saw it reflecting off of this object.
And they also saw a door open up and little
things come
triangle
out.
things
And
fly
how
out.
would you explain that? Now, none of that was covered in the report.
Okay.
But they closed it immediately. Project Grudge said, yeah, there's nothing there to be seen. Move on in life. At least they didn't say it was swamp gas. I guess that would be a plus.
True.
But regardless, so there was some official
interest
in it. Thank you. You don't think that my mind was being sucked by the government so that I would forget about it?
It could.
Or was it just I didn't have enough coffee?
Possibly you just didn't have enough coffee.
Okay, moving on. And so, after all the incidents, there were of course the normal rumors that the military had scrambled jets, that the craft was 10,000 feet across and covered the whole skyline of Cincinnati. None of that. The U.S. Army had deployed radar units to capture it. None of that was true. That was all just hearsay that came on along later. But they really did send two officers to take a look at it, and they concluded there was nothing to be seen. So that kind of concludes the official narrative of what happened with
the Norwood Church UFO.
Spotlight UFO.
Spotlight
yes.
UFO.
But a couple of years later, 1952, UFO craze was still hitting America. And the local TV station decided to do a show about UFOs, local UFOs specifically. And so one of the people they had contacted was Father Miller to come talk about his incident. Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so they contacted Father Miller, and he turned up and had pictures, the videos the police had taken. And they made the TV show. It doesn't, from what I understand, it doesn't exist anymore. They recorded over the recording. I mean, it's 1950, it was a long time ago.
Which I'm guessing was common at the time.
Right. Nothing really nefarious.
There was no thought about we need to archive this.
So Father Miller, Sergeant Berger, and then Police Sergeant Leo Davidson, who had been the official Norwood photographer who took all the pictures, were on the show, interviewed, along with some UFO researchers and then other stuff.
So if you're the official Norwood police photographer, you're probably used to photographing or taking pictures of like dead people.
Oh, this was a much better gig, I'm sure, than car accidents and everything.
Car
else.
accidents. Yeah. This would have been a much better gig. Yeah.
And so they produced the TV show, and then following the airing of the show, they get a phone call from Time magazine. And they were interested in doing a story, and they asked if they could send the footage to a reporter for them, and that they would give it back. And so they sent all the pictures and some of the film footage to the Time author. The story never runs. They never hear from the author again. And when they try to contact him, they said no one exists by that name. The evidence, the only visual evidence, disappears.
So the person who called and said they were from Time magazine and were writing the story did not really work.
Well,
for
that's the theory. Or it really just got lost in some reporter's pile of junk, and
it was some freelance person who was going to write a story, send it to Time, and they weren't interested.
But it is weird, though, right?
I will give it to you. It is weird. It sounds very mysterious. Sounds very, very much like the UFO stories that were to come.
And then the part that I kind of, when I hear UFO stories, there are people that often have good stories that as the years go on, they keep having more and more stories, and they start going down the
As we
crazy train.
said last time, there are people who seem to have a UFO story, and then
Yeah.
there's always that sequel.
Right. And this is not the case here. Reverend Miller passes away from an illness a few years later. Sergeant Berger, who was operating the light and was central to this,
Yeah.
he lived until the late 80s, never reported another UFO, didn't make a dime off of this, didn't even talk about it. So it wasn't like they were out for publicity, which to me was always an indicator of the person is either making it up or has some type of issue.
You always wonder when somebody says they've had any sort of experience and then they write a book about it.
Always the book. Always the
And
book.
then the book does well. And then all of a sudden now they're having more experiences
Yep.
and more books.
Yeah. And this was not the case.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of gone to almost a relatively unknown UFO story. I'd never heard of this.
No, I had never heard of it until I just saw the headline, which sounded like it would be a fun little story to use in a sermon. Again, never could, never had reason to use it, to be quite honest with you, to look any deeper other than
Right.
the headline.
And there are some modern UFO researchers that try to make a big deal out of the 1952 show about UFOs that included this story.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore. But come on, it was 1952. Film was expensive. They did a local show broadcast, and they've recorded over it. I mean, if they record over the moon landing at NASA, they're recording over a show in Cincinnati at the local TV station.
Yeah,
To save money. That's
the
just what
thought
happens.
of everything that's being produced being archived and saved just wasn't.
That's not a thing.
No, it's just not a thing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that is just lost.
So this is where I say at the beginning, this is either a story of a man with a plan and a spotlight who is going to make some money going around to festivals, or it's a love story between a UFO and a light. Which do you think it is?
I'm thinking it's a love story between a UFO and a light. I think there's something about that light that UFO. Now, the other spotlight, the rival spotlight in town.
Never reported anything from what I
Okay, so
understand. Yeah.
so it would be just this the spotlight. Although I got to tell you, the fact that it's only this spotlight,
And no other spotlight, right?
yeah, it would, you would somehow think that if there was something up there, radar and stuff didn't pick it up.
No, nothing.
Interesting. You could see where the Air Force was coming from.
Right. I mean, it's a great story though.
But it's
I
a
mean,
great story. And the question though that
and the church still exists. So my question, Pastor Rick, is what we need to do is look up and see if they have a festival coming up soon and do our own on the scene investigation.
Let's see. Hold on a second.
They've changed the name, I know. It's no longer it's Saint something else. I did read that. But I think we should do an on the ground investigation, and you got to take witnesses with us. So we got to find the most people that we can that are.
I could get people from my church who would go. I know they would. I could tell Groveport UMC tomorrow morning on Sunday morning and say, hey, I need people to go with me to see if a UFO is still attracted to a spotlight. I could probably even get people to bring flashlights and stuff, like those big ones.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not a 8 million candle,
right?
But we could do something like that.
So the church was called Saints Peter and Paul Church in Norwood, and it's called something else now. If I was a better librarian, I would have that right in front of me, but I'm not. So
let's see. You've got the choice in beautiful Norwood, Ohio. You're going to have Immaculate Conception, Holy Trinity, Saint Cecilia.
Well, we'll have to figure that out. I did know where it was. I did have that written down one of these notes, and I've lost it. So sorry, Father Rick. Yeah, not Father Rick. Sorry, Pastor Rick. I lost that. Looks like our field trip is gonna get sidetracked. This is the riveting audio podcast that
everybody loves it when there is silence and just typing.
So we should take a field trip down there. Do a on the man scene. See what happens.
So my question is, should I go over to my church tonight and shine a light up in the sky?
That really is the question.
Now, the fact that we are on the final approach to Rickenbacker Airport,
Which is a large cargo facility.
which is a
to go
very
out.
large cargo facility with some budget airline flights going in. What's the one that's always a fight? Spirit.
Spirit.
Yeah.
Lure of the Flies on board.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Lord of the Flies on there. Those kind of things. But there's a whole lot of military aircraft landing in there, along with tons of cargo airplanes
There are.
for FedEx. And I'm pretty sure, since they're coming over top of my church at a couple hundred feet,
They're not
getting
gonna
ready to
appreciate-
land. They're getting ready to land. They probably would not appreciate me shining a bright light into their cockpits.
That's how you get visited by two men from the government.
I would probably get visited by two men in suits from the government. I probably would, especially if maybe I decided to use a laser pointer. That might be a problem. Yeah. So this is an odd story.
But I love the fact that I believe there's a guy in the church that can do it. So there's always, no matter what you need, there's always someone in the church that can do it.
No matter what it is you need,
There's always there's a guy
there's either a guy or somebody knows a guy
that can do something.
that
And
can do what it is you need done.
in this case, run a spotlight.
Right. Run a spotlight, fix something,
Nuclear fusion in the basement.
whatever it
Whatever
is.
your need is
Either
church.
there's somebody there or somebody knows a guy who can do it.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very true. But the question that everyone is going to be having.
Yeah.
Did they raise the money they needed for the school and for the nuns?
You know what? I have no idea.
What?
But the fact that it's still there, I would have guessed they did. That's a fact that I did not actually research. But I would assume, things were going great. You could afford a trapeze artist. That's a festival right there, my friend.
So were they Christian trapeze artists or were they just trapeze artists?
It does not say.
And if you're a Christian trapeze artist, what does that mean?
Is it sort of like liturgical dance?
I guess.
Got like banners. And,
I have no idea. Trapeze.
and I feel that's a lost art form these days. Like, I wouldn't even know where to get a trapeze artist.
I have no idea.
Did you Google it?
Now,
I don't know if I would Google trapeze artist.
Now, in my experience, what draws people to church events
Or not trapeze artists, but fire eaters.
well, I've never had trapeze artists or fire eaters, but ponies.
Oh, yeah, I can see animals.
I got to tell you, ponies, walking in circles. And one time I had a baby pony, and she wasn't big enough to ride yet, but it was Easter. And when she came out, she was dressed as the Easter bunny. They had a little Easter.
That's adorable.
And she walked behind mommy. Holy cow. We had people pulling off the road to come see the baby pony. So, animals have always been successful, but I've never thought about a trapeze artist or fire eater or even a giant spotlight.
Which is also why you've never had a UFO come to your church event.
Come to think about it. Think about this. When we were kids, you would see every once in a while
A spotlight.
Mm-hmm. For like a car lot or something.
Wasn't uncommon.
Wasn't uncommon. I can't tell you the last time I saw a spotlight for anything.
Yeah, you don't know.
No.
You see those stupid
Those
blow-up
stupid
guys that
blow
move
up
their
guys.
arms around and-
But a good old fashioned spotlight swooping around at night. You just don't. I remember seeing them at night.
Yeah, you don't really see that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a spotlight. So, all right, so that was it then.
That's the story of the Norwood UFO.
Of the Norwood UFO. Could I use this story in a sermon? I'm sure I could. I'm trying to think of exactly what I would say,
I was thinking the spotlight to raise money for the church could be worked into a stewardship sermon.
It could. Tomorrow is my annual stewardship sermon. And
Everybody loves that Sunday, by the way.
yeah, everybody loves that, I'm sure. I don't know if I'm going to use this story for that, but it is definitely a way to raise some money. I wonder where you get a spotlight at. Can you rent a spotlight?
They might have FAA rules about that now. It was 1949. Life was different then.
You can? Believe it or not, you can rent one from Home Depot
Big Orange has one?
or United Rentals.
This is down the street.
So, all right. Well, thanks, Rob. This was a fun story. I can sort of see why it never made it into a sermon. However, it is interesting and it's got a local flavor, which I like because we could jump in the car right now, drive down to Norwood, be there at about an hour and a half, and scope out the scene.
I see a field trip.
I see a field trip. Maybe after church tomorrow, I'll take a group of folks and we will go and see if we can't locate a giant flying peanut.
Shiny peanut.
All right, that'll do it for us here on this edition of the Parsonage Files. If you are looking for a church home, we would love to invite you to Groveport United Methodist. You can join us for worship every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. online or in person. So until next time, take care, God bless, and make sure that you keep looking for the flying peanut.